Hello everyone, and welcome to this latest edition of ALNAP's Urban Webinar Series. I am really pleased to welcome you today. My name is Leah Campbell, and I'm a Senior Research Officer here at ALNAP. On the line today we have four different speakers who are going to share a presentation with us later on, and I'll get to introducing them in a moment, but collectively the five of us are calling in today from the UK, Lebanon, Niger, the Netherlands, and the Dominican Republic. So we're really coming to you from across the globe, and we're glad that so many of you are also joining us from wherever you are today. I wanted to start off by also figuring out a bit more about who we have in the room. I'll get to introducing, as I say, our speakers in a moment, but we're also going to launch a quick poll while you listen to my introductory ramblings. This is just to get a quick sense of your experience with urban issues. So it goes from being a complete urban newbie, not having previously done or thought much about urban contexts, all the way up to urban experts who basically should be speakers on this webinar. Also. So it's just a quick fun poll. Have a think and submit your responses, and then we'll get to the results in just a moment. So about the topic we have today, we have a two-pronged topic, choosing and defining urban areas for humanitarian response. And really this topic is about within the broader city, at some point or another, it's probable that quite a few of us as humanitarians will need to either do analysis or assessment or program at a smaller scale than the entire city to work in an area, a neighborhood, a settlement, some sort of geographically smaller area than a city. And when we're doing that, there are two somewhat technical but also somewhat philosophical questions that might come up for us. One is, amongst the entire city, which area should we focus on? Where are the vulnerabilities? Which area should we prioritize? And how do we do that in a way that is evidence-based and that doesn't get based on convenience, and that we really are confident in the decision that we make there. The second part of this is about, once we're there, how do we understand what the boundaries of that area might be? Are those administrative boundaries? Do we ask people's sense of neighborhood? What if there are differences in those things, and how does that get reconciled? So that's really the topic we're going to be dividing or diving into today. And really, this isn't about the merits of an area-based approach. There are other resources for that. There's some great research done by Parker and Maynard, and then more recently Sitko and Sanderson. We've had a previous ALNAP urban webinar about this. Interaction held a great workshop earlier this summer, and this is now also part of the agenda, both of the Global Alliance for Urban Crises and also a new working group on settlements approaches under the Global Shelter Cluster, as well as new guidance material coming out from PCI. So there's lots of other work going on about area-based or settlements-based approaches. And that's not what we're tackling here. We're tackling these technical challenges about choosing and defining the area. So I'm going to take a quick look at our poll results now. It looks at quite a few of you, 40%, have had some urban experience, but not a huge amount. So we also have about 16% of you who are quite new to urban. We also have then 12% who've done some research on urban, but perhaps not operational, and a good number of you also have had a lot of operational experience, 33%. 0% of you said you're urban experts and demand to be added as a speaker on this webinar. So I'm glad we got it right, because we do have four very experienced experts in their own right to introduce to you in just a moment. I just want to quickly explain the outline of this webinar before we get to them. So as I mentioned, this webinar is quite a long one with four different speakers, and we're running for the next 2 hours. The webinar is going to be effectively split up into two halves. Within each half, we have two presentations and time for Q&A. We also have a couple of more polls to throw in for you throughout. So in the first hour, we have presentations from CRS and UN Habitat, and in the second hour, we have presentations from Impact Initiatives and Humanitarian OpenStreetMap. So without further ado, we're going to start our first section And we're going to introduce our first two speakers to you. And again, while I'm doing this, I'm going to launch another poll, just so we also hear a bit more again about your thoughts. The poll is about when you're thinking about what area to choose. There's two parts to this poll. You can answer all of the following, which might be applicable about when you might choose an area, just to give us a sense of when this might be an issue for you. Is it when you're doing an assessment or analysis? Is it in a humanitarian response? Would you be looking for one area? Would you be looking at multiple areas? Or can you not see any use at all for geographic areas? I apologize, there's only so many options we can put, and there's no option for a fill in the blanks, but you can always add in your own thoughts in the questions bar. So while you're filling this out, I will introduce our first two speakers. Our first speaker from CRS is Tulio Mateo, who is an architect with a Master in Urban Development and Post-Conflict Reconstruction. Before becoming part of the Global Technical Advisors, Tulio served for CRS's Typhoon Haiyan response in Tacloban in the Philippines, where he was responsible for the urban planning and disaster risk reduction activities. He's previously worked in diverse reconstruction projects for Entrepreneurs du Monde, Habitat for Humanity, Oxfam, and UNICEF in Haiti, Dominican Republic, the Sahrawi refugee camps, and Rwanda. Our second speaker after Tulio is Riham from UN Habitat. Riham holds a bachelor's degree in landscape architecture and a master's in sociology from the American University of Beirut. She has worked as a landscape architect for engineering consultancy firms, an urban planner for UNDP, and is now the socio-urban coordinator for UN Habitat in Lebanon. Riham is particularly interested in social development and spatial analysis. In a moment, I'll turn over to Tulio. We'll just take a quick look at our poll here. So 78% of you would potentially look at choosing a geographic area when you're doing an assessment or analysis, and 67% of you would also or instead use choosing an area for implementing a humanitarian response. 41% of you would use choosing an area to find one specific area, where 57% would look at finding multiple areas that might be compared, and none of you see no use for geographic areas, which is probably a good thing since you're going to spend 2 hours of your life with us here today. So thanks for those responses, and without further ado, I'm going to turn over to Tulio for our first presentation. Take it away, Tulio.